Welcome everyone, Dr. Spoor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I've been talking about scientific fraud for years, and now apparently it's coming out from many different sources of how fraudulent science is. We just can't believe anything that anybody tells us, and to somehow give credibility to science and dumbademia is a frightening way to think about anything. What do you think about that, Yoda?
Patience.
Patience?
Hypocrisy. Always emotion is the future.
So, the bottom line is that we have to fully understand the fact that there is no credibility anywhere. We are living in a rotten, festering sewer of reality that nobody has any credibility. Everybody lives by the buck. Nobody is happy with a good lifestyle. They want opulence. They want audacious wealth at the expense of their own credibility and realities. And that the higher education, these Harvards, Yales, the MITs, the Stanfords, are all heavily involved in fraud. This fraud is not just something that we can shrug our shoulders at. This causes serious problems within society, but there's also a glaring reason for all this. Now, why do you have to have fraudulent data? Well, first of all, the system is set up wrong. If you think that these are learning institutions, they are businesses. And college professors and so forth want to make lots of money, and they do. They sell their services, they write books, they become advisors. I mean, people have to understand these aren't people that are sitting in classrooms teaching you, and if they do that, it's very minor. Most college professors are involved in all sorts of other works. Not only are they collecting a very large check from their universities or colleges, also that they don't really work that hard because they have numerous student helpers on top of it to help teach, to do everything else. So most teachers don't work very hard at all. Maybe grade school teachers work hard and have lots of kids they control. But the bottom line is that it is a pretty cushy job the minute you get out of lower level teaching. And when you're in the college areas, it's really a super easy job with very high pay and easy hours. But this is not good enough for them. The bottom line is that most of these big time teachers, particularly from Stanford, Harvard, etc., are all involved in numerous other projects where they're making a fortune from their own companies. As I've mentioned, they write books, they're doing other things, they're consulting, they're making a fortune, banging off or bouncing off their so called credibility as a dumbademia person. Couldn't be further from the truth. Even on my lower level college experiences that I was involved in, not having the funds to go to these more expensive schools, I saw the kind of idiocy that was in the college system. Schools that were thought to be one of the better schools, that hired some of the worst teachers I've ever seen, that really were completely and out of touch with business and whatever subject they were teaching. It was really sad. Things like telling a business student to go to the local bank for venture capital. Now, venture capital is never supplied by local banks. Banks don't want to give you any kind of loans unless it's guaranteed by the government. And that's the way they've been working. Most home loans are federally insured loans. Banks don't want to give you money for anything. I had trouble getting banks to even give me a credit card account when I had a booming business. I mean, this is unbelievable. So this is the kind of idiocy you got, and these were taught to be top-end teachers, which didn't know anything about business whatsoever, who supposedly even came from business. So it goes on and on with this kind of ridiculousness that you run into. And it's considered in Stanford that if you join Stanford Business School, you're not expected to graduate. You're expected to start a business in a couple of years. You're there and they help you, walk you along, get you financing and everything that goes with that. It's all a rigged system. And Ivy League students don't walk out of there with big giant bills like your middle class do. They have huge funds, and everybody that goes to their schools are paid for by alumni and other funds they have. More of this. So it's a pretty horrible system. And for these teachers to prosper and to make more money and to get more grant money or to get contracts with the corporations that run all your colleges. Now, your colleges and all the money for colleges really come from corporations. And corporations tell the researchers what to do, what to find, how to operate. So researchers are not looking for finding truth. They're looking for finding answers that the corporations will pay for. Now, I do understand this on a certain level. If you're a corporation, even if someone has discovered the cure for cancer, you want what you hired them for. You think that as a corporation, you'd be smart enough to do something with that data, or maybe even sell it to someone else that can use it. You know, there's always a business answer to things that has credibility, honesty, and value to it that you can profit from and still do what you want to do. But that's not how business operates. They're rapers. They're robber barons. That's the way people work. That's the way the reality is out there. And the system is all set up. They want people writing papers constantly so they can publish these to get attention in whatever area that may be, whether it's human behavior or some science or something else. It's all about writing lots and lots of papers to get noticed. This is how Dumbademia works. And what happens when you're in a field, which is all science, by the way, when there's really nothing you can discover? There's nothing new that's come out of science. Science lives 500 years ago in Newtonian thinking. Or hundreds of years ago. Even quantum physics is probably could be 200 years old, or at least 150 years old. I believe it was in 1890s or 1880s where the first paper on quantum physics was written. So we're talking about an area of science that people think are new that go back over 100 years. So, and what new has come out of science? What has we discovered? What has banging things together in a giant collider? Seems to me we could save a lot of money and we can get some of them bumper cars you see at those carnival shows. And we can get one scientist on one side and we can put the pedal to the metal and run into each other. Save you a lot of money. We don't need a $10 billion collider. And of course, science is always at the leading cause of everything. Basically, all science is based on burning something. That's what everything is about. And when we want to discover how something works, well, we run something in. So we run particles together and smash them together to try and figure out what's inside of them. Genius. Genius. I'm sure they're figuring out I'm sure that involves burning as well. After all, going at those speeds, because the collisions must create a fire. So everything is really based on fire anyway. No matter what it is, it gets down to fire and producing that. So basically, a nuclear power plant is a steam plant. And how is steam created? Well, you burn water. So how you use chemotherapy, which is a type of chemical burning. So, I mean, it goes on and on. This is the answers that the scientists give us. They're going to write a paper on that. They should be writing papers on why they're failures, why they're not doing anything, why they have achieved nothing, why we have no cures, why we have no free energy. That's what science ought to be writing papers on, and why the people there who basically are committing crimes against humanity by making hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars talking about complete and total nonsense. We don't have any decent science. We don't have any decent technology. It's all a fraud. Everything we're using today is a variation of something that's 50 or 60 years old. A cell phone is nothing more than a telephone, which is over 120 years old, that has a battery on it. I mean, it's ridiculous. And there's nothing new about wireless communication. So all of this they're joke technologies. And they're refinements of old technologies. Well, you may like your 4K TV. Ooh, I love them Ks. It's just a TV. It's just a clearer TV with a better picture. Where's the holographic TVs? Where's all the other TVs that were supposed to be out? Well, we won't have holographic TVs for another 20 or 30 years, but holographs were done by Disney in 1962. We'll have to wait 100 years for that one, Dr. Thor. Yeah, well, we certainly will, because science is on the job. Let's thank science. Thank them next time you go to the grave and look at your parents. Thank them next time you go and look at pictures of all your dead pets. Thank science. Another time you look at the dirty water and the polluted skies and the crap technologies. Thank science, because they couldn't come up with a clean engine. And of course, the scientists are more than happy to grab their ankles and spread it for anything that comes up in front of them, because after all, their life is all dependent upon the luxuries they can get, not on credibility, not seeking gnosis, not seeking truth. It's all about being corrupt. And then they want to venture in, as Sean Carroll does in this day and age. He wants to be the philosophical scientist. Why? Because there's nothing to find in physics. It's all been done. It's 500 years old. There's nothing new about it. Or maybe he can talk to his buddies, one of them who's a born-again Christian physicist. Boy, he's thinking right. I want to get that guy's papers. So the whole idea is we have these kind of ridiculousness, or scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson, whatever his name is, Boobalicious Monkey Man, who basically is an astrophysicist, which is telling you what the rocks in space are made of, but he wants to comment on everything because he's read a few books, and obviously his mind works that way. And because nobody else reads anything, he announces stuff like how much he doesn't know about anything, including things like distilled water and all the other things he talks about. So why he's a specialist in everything when he has a degree only in astrophysicist is something we should all contemplate. Neil, write a paper on that. Write a paper while you're an expert on everything, but have a degree in one thing. Maybe we should write a paper on why Einstein, all that he ever did was rewrite papers that were already there. He re-explained a theory from someone else. Thank you, Einstein. Or all the other scientists who have done nothing but re-explain things. And the stupidity of things, and how stupid science is that we name electrical frequencies after the guy who tested the real theory, the real tests that were done by Maxwell, a Scotsman. But we're going to name what it's all about after Hertzian. A guy, I plugged two things together. I had a little light. I banged it. Yeah. Well, we're going to give him credit. I mean, this is the idiocy of science. People want to name telescopes, which are invented, I believe, by Galileo, and name it Hubble, because he was the guy that used the telescope. Were his hands clean? Was the lens wiped? Well, I don't think we should be naming telescopes after people who have used them. It's a telescope, and thousands of people were involved with that. Maybe we should name the telescope after that guy that got that sand so that we have those lenses and polished it, and those poor people that dug it out of the ground to get heavy metals. Maybe it should be Yakugi's telescope. He did all the work and probably carried that metal on his back for a nickel. And you won't find a scientist working for a nickel. Not unless it's the size of a car and it's plated in gold, then a scientist will more than happy work for that nickel. But we keep rewarding failure. We keep rewarding things that do not work, and we keep patting on the back these institutions of folly and stupidity by giving them millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to do studies that produce absolutely nothing. And they are vacuous. There's nothing to find by these ignorant, caught in a tiny little box of reality that they're in. They're never going to produce anything because they refuse to look at bigger pictures. They refuse to look outside of not only the box, but outside of the box of the box of the box. They want to go back to the same thing because they keep getting patted on the bottom by the people that are running these scientific departments that want you to write stuff and invent things based in the same old nonsense that well, I told you so. See, if you would have stayed believing in that, you get all these breakthroughs. Now, these scientific frauds aren't a couple people. They aren't here and there. They are the way that dumbademia works. And this goes on, and it goes on for everything from money to egotism. They want to be noted for something. There's been many feuds between different scientists in many, many different areas, but they're writing papers that are made up, that are bogus, that are taking figures. They're stealing information from other people, but it all adds up to stuff that ultimately is just wrong. They're making conclusions and pushing other people who want to do research after them in the wrong direction, further causing the house of cards, which never really was stable and kind of was falling down all the time. All they did was add to an already sick and weak structure. Now, I encourage everybody who's listening to this, of course, just punch in scientific fraud in your search engine here, and you will get hundreds of documented cases. And again, these aren't just anybody. These are all your pristine, your expensive, your authoritarian schools that have been doing this. Your Harvards, your Stanfords, your MIT. So the whole idea is all these people are putting together fraudulent data so that they can make lots of money and be patted on the back by the priesthood of dumbademia to continue to push the same old rot because there are no answers in their pigeonhole, their tiny little flea's navel of a reality that they live in. We're never going to get anywhere if we have that kind of stupid thought that doesn't encourage and should be demanding papers that are written that are outrageous, that don't even make sense, so that people can look at something differently, instead of looking at stuff the same old way. We've had lots of great scientists who have been scorned and persecuted. People like Nikola Tesla and so many other people, by the way, that have tried to do things that have been suppressed because they know too much, because they have different ideas, and that threatens the establishment, who, as science even itself, says that science changes its opinions and moves ahead with the death of every scientist. Meaning the fact that these scientists who vehemently fight for their wrong position are supported until they no longer are alive. Pretty sad if that's how you characterize the scientific community, and that's exactly how you do. So, I've been saying this for years, and as usual, little old Dr. Thor is 100% right. Everything I always say is all correct. It's all part of the true reality out there. It's all part of the gnosis of what's going on, the facts of the issue. But nobody is seeking truth and facts. People are seeking money in their pockets. They're seeking praise from their corrupt dumbademia. And this is causing a horrible problem with the reality we live in, because we have no answers to anything. These are crimes against humanity. And fraudulent people that do this should be imprisoned for their crimes, because this is serious. This is destroying the foundation of all society, who somehow holds science as some sort of god or religion. And that's what scientists do. It's not a seeking of truth. It's a religion. And it's just as messed up and just as screwy, just like the screwy wabbit, it's just as screwy as religion itself is. The dogmas are identical. The fanaticism is identical. And this is perpetrated by their priesthood, their department heads, the people they work with, and of course, they themselves that support the same old failure, the same old nonsense, the same old that produces zero results. living in, of course, a very corrupt world. Why wouldn't this be corrupt? There is not a single non corrupt area of this society. There's not a single one. And the kind of corruption that goes on in all these areas is frightening. With doctors that murder people every day for money and for criminals, for people that push dangerous drugs and other things that will kill you. All of this is part of the bigger corruption. And these people have no honor. They have nothing but their filthy corruption. And they're more than happy to live in their gold-plated feces than do something of value and to stand up for something and for people to stand up together within an organization and support alternative thinking, support proper research. But there is nothing to find in Dumbademia. What are you going to discover? Nothing. Their heads are up their bottoms, and all they can do is see the poo and nothing past it. It's as simple as that. We live in a sad reality, and we're not going to fix this, and it's never been fixed. There's nothing to fix. It's all about surviving and escaping into higher and better realities and leaving this sewer the way it is for those that deserve to be in it. Until next time.